Welcome, everybody. We had a great Saturday last week, the robe offering ceremony. See a lot of people here who were at that. It was really, really wonderful. I think I heard that from a lot of people who were attending, and certainly for Ajahn Nisabo and I, being able to receive our monastic brothers and sisters and teachers was just fantastic. A really bright occasion, I think, for all. So glad we're all together again. Today we might start off with just a few announcements. Matt, if you wanted to, do we have another mic for announcement or two? What's that? Sure. Yeah.
For those who don't know, and all of us to remember, we are generously donated the use of this space by the cathedral every week. And as a way to show our appreciation for that, we have a box back here for Donna, for anybody who feels prepared to give something to the cathedral in gratitude for our use of this space.
And then the other thing, and my notes are over there, so I might ramble a bit here, but the other thing is people have commented that they've had trouble knowing what's coming up or where to go for information. So there are, just to try and clarify, and hopefully for the people online as well, there's basically 3 forms of social media that Clear Mountain uses. YouTube, and you can find out what's going on, well, YouTube, WhatsApp, and Discord. YouTube, you can find out what's coming up on there by looking down at the second row and it says, what are the upcoming talks? WhatsApp is basically where you can get just about all the information sent to you, and it's a lot less intimidating for some people than Discord. WhatsApp is available to you, and all of these are both available on the website or on the brochures. You can find these. WhatsApp, you will get announcements of what's coming up. Discord allows both for you to get those announcements and to participate in discussions. And I think people know there's on the Discord, there's 3 ones that just we'll bring up real quick. One is the general one, and anybody got an idea what the general one's for? General information, okay? The other one is Seattleites, that for the people living in this area, things that will be relevant just locally. And then the third one, and I think Kirk was going to talk about it for a second. Is that good? Is the Upasaka group. Oh, and what I wanted to say in these, there's some very lively discussion going on online. And the Upasaka group, which some people might be interested in, is, Kirk, can I bring you the mic real quick? And I'm turning this into longer than 2 minutes, and I promised you 2 minutes.
Yeah, the Upasaka group, we meet I believe it's the first Monday of every month, and just discuss the sutta, and yeah, it's nice.
And there's about 300 people involved, right?
Yeah, just in that Upasaka group, 300 people who are keeping the 5 precepts.
And on the Discord, there's a very lively conversation. So I don't know if I hope if I clarified anything to people. I think a lot of people were confused in particular about the Discord, and all of those you can sign up to for online on the website. Is that covered?
Yeah.
And the Upasaka group is for people who are holding the 5 precepts and having a daily meditation practice.
Perfect.
Is that good? That's more than 2 minutes, though. Sorry.
Nope. Sounds good. Good. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, so we have these different ways to tap in, and I think our whole theme for this morning will be light, bringing lightness to our practice. There's a Pali term called aloka karana, those things which bring light. And one of them is the precepts. So that's part of the Discord group, the Upasaka group. These are people who voluntarily take on the 5 precepts. And if you don't know what those are, no worries, because we're about to recite them for anyone who's interested. So we do this once a month, typically on the first Saturday of the month. So for people who are interested, you can go in the chanting book to page 128. And Jeremy is going to do a formal requesting of the 3 refuges and 5 precepts. And this is just a formal ceremony, which is, it's been done since the time of the Buddha. And like most ceremonies, it's just a chance to bring lightness into your practice in more formal ways. These ceremonies have been done. The formulas have been recited for a long time. So you're kind of tapping into this stream of momentum all the way since the time of the Buddha. So no pressure at all. You can feel free to read ahead if you don't know what the 3 refuges and the 5 precepts are, and feel free to take whichever ones and you feel comfortable with. So please, Jeremy.
Mayang Bante Tisarnena Saha Pancha Silani Yachama Dutiyampi Mayang Bante Tisarnena Saha Pancha Silani Yachama Tatiyampi Mayang Bante Tisarnena Saha Pancha Silani Yachama.
Okay, now I'll recite the Namo 3 times, and then you can repeat after me after I do the 3. This will be in Pali. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Okay. And we'll do these next ones back and forth. I'll recite one in Pali, and then you can recite just like a concert. Buddhang saranang gacchami. Dhammang saranang gacchami. Sanghang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Tisarana kamanang nititang. Okay, and we'll do these precepts in Pali, then in English, one after another. Panatipata Veramani Sikapadang Samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from taking the life of any living creature. Adina dana Veramani Sikapadang Samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from taking that which has not been given. Kame sumichachara Veramani Sikapadang Samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from sexual misconduct. Musawada Veramani Sikapadang Samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from lying. Sura meraya majapamadatana veramani sikapadang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from consuming intoxicating drink and drugs which lead to carelessness. Imani panchasika padani samadhiyami silena sugating yanti silena boga sampada silena nibuting yanti tasama silang visodaye. Okay. So we can, having done that and brought some brightness to the mind, hopefully, we can all sit together for about 20 minutes or so. And people are, of course, welcome to practice with whatever object you're most familiar with. Keeping with the theme of lightness, I will give a few words directing about this practice of the perception of light, the aloka sanya. So anyone who wants to follow along with what I'm speaking about, you're welcome to do that as well. So for this, actually suggest that people start with your eyes open and just looking in front of you with just a soft gaze. You can start just looking with what we'll call just flashlight awareness. So if you're looking this way, you can just take in just myself and the Buddha statue, just this little circle of awareness, this circle of light in front of us. Seeing the light within just that circle. And then see if you can expand your awareness to lamp light awareness. So actually relaxing your pupils, relaxing the muscles around the eyes, and just letting in all the light from the room. So allowing the light from the periphery of our vision, the sides, the top, the bottom, where our vision just fuzzies out all around, and just let light in from everything in front of us. Just letting this lamplight awareness. And then you can switch around the perception to, we can call skylight awareness. So more in line with how visual perception actually works. We're not sending anything out. The eye isn't going out. The mind isn't going out, but light is just coming into the eyes. We're receiving this light. So it's as if we had this huge skylight all around above us, in front of us, to the sides, all around. The walls and the ceiling as if they were just glass, just letting in all this light. And we can just take in all of that with the relaxed pupils, relaxed muscles around each eye, just letting all the light in. And having taken in this light, you can close your eyes when you're ready. And notice that everything isn't totally dark. There's still light here. This is eye light awareness. We're still receiving some light through the eyelids. Might be slightly pink or orange. These are just exercises in awareness. We're training the mind through these specific perceptions, training and staying with particular objects. So seeing light even though our eyes are closed. And this would be the same even if we were in a totally dark room. We might not be seeing light through the eyelids, but the brain just creates these splashes of light, splash of color. And just knowing these and letting this awareness of the eye light become interesting. And see how far out on either side this light, this eye light, seems to manifest. You can definitely see it in the middle of the eye range. White or yellow, orange, even blues or other colors. Can you also see it at the periphery? And just how far back does that go? How far to the sides can you still see this light? And how far away is the light? What is the depth? Is it somehow the distance from the lens of the eye to the eyelids, from the brain to the eyelids? Or does it seem closer or further away than that, this eye light? And this exploration of the eye light can lead almost seamlessly into a perception of inner light. The boundary between the eye consciousness and just the mind consciousness is not so this and that. So is there any lightness of mind? And what does that even mean? And you can experiment with what it might mean to see this mind light. You can experiment with what it might mean to be this mind light. As if it's everywhere. And it can seem to be everywhere, just above, below, around, and everywhere, abundant, exalted, immeasurable. And if you can, just experiment just staying with this light of the mind. And if that doesn't make sense, then experiment with breathing light. So this is a more tangible object. So knowing the full extent of every in-breath and the full extent of every out-breath. And seeing how that relates to the perception of light, this inner light. You might experience a slight brightening of the inner light, this inner perception with the in-breath, and a slight decrease with the out-breath. Just taking interest in this pulsing, becoming fascinated by it. This is what concentration is. This is how we train our mindfulness. We can just try to stay here for the next 10 minutes or so. Whether here is just the simple, uncomplicated letting be and being light, or breathing light. Whole in-breath, whole out-breath. Just in the last minute of a meditation, if you have been able to tap into this perception of light, or even if you haven't, see if you can practice a bit of loving kindness. And with this perception of light, you can just introduce this idea, this seed thought, this intention of loving kindness into the heart and allow it to radiate in every direction. Just may I be happy and may all beings be happy. Any mindfulness that we've been able to cultivate this last bit, just allow that soft awareness to expand. It can be limitless. Just may I be happy and may all beings be happy. All of me, all of you, everyone in the room, all of Seattle, all of Washington, abundant, exalted, and immeasurable, just limitless.
Brahma Jaloka Thipati Sahampati Dat Anjali An Tiwarang Ayatata Santi Tasatta Parashakashatika Tese tu dhammang Anukam Bimang Pashang.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So if anybody would like to change your posture, you can feel free to stand up now and sit down whenever your body is ready for it. Yeah. I would be curious, just for a show of hands. Let's see. Who here was unable, like to all this talk of perception of light, and you don't have to look around to see because there's no right answer to this, but who here was just flummoxed, or this talk of light just didn't make any sense? You can raise your hand. Okay. There are a couple of hands. That's great. So for those people and anybody else who maybe just didn't feel bold enough to raise your hand, thought to start off just giving you a fact, not about perception of light, but just about, yeah, even if the rest of the talk sucks or is uninteresting, then at least you've learned one fact about the world. So this fact I learned recently, it's my second word in Russian. I know 2 words in Russian, and my first word is a curse word I learned in first grade, and I won't tell you that one. But the second one is the Russian word for alarm clock. Does anybody here speak Russian? Or yeah, all right. So well, there might be more than one, but the one I'm thinking of is budilnik. Yes, all right. So budilnik is the Russian word for alarm clock, and it's cognate. That means it relates to linguistically the Pali and Sanskrit word or root bud, which means to wake up, the same as the Buddha. So we can take the Buddha as our alarm clock, that which kind of wakes us up and brings light into our practice. So budilnik. So all right. Hopefully the rest of the talk you can walk out anytime if things get boring. But yeah, the Buddha did talk about this perception of light. And I'll be just giving a few of the similes that he talked about and maybe saying some of the Pali words which he used and maybe elaborating on some of the different meanings there. He talked about it in quite a few different places using different Pali words for the word light. And it's rather fascinating that he didn't go more deeply. He didn't describe it more deeply, actually, what this practice was. Where it comes up most frequently is in relationship to the mental habit of sloth and torpor, or tina middha, this contraction and darkening of the mind. And this is a mind state which it's usually translated, it's one of the 5 hindrances, and it's usually translated as sloth and torpor, which are pretty extreme words. And but it really does cover the whole gamut, the whole spectrum of just our unawareness. So when we just go on autopilot, all of the degrees of autopilot, that's the darkness, that's the, this tina middha, this sloth and torpor in its kind of minor manifestation. And the Buddha prescribed for this tina middha, for this sloth and torpor, for this apathy and autopilot mode, just the perception of light, the aloka sanya. And he said that we can practice it as if what is in front is the same as what's behind, as what is above is the same as what is below, as what is below is the same as what is above, as the nighttime is the daytime, and as the daytime is the nighttime. So basically it's a perception that is spherical. It goes all around and it is unlimited. So we can practice it in that way, and it's something to look at in our own practice. I introduced in that introductory meditation a couple of ways that we can direct our mind in ways that are like light. So that flashlight awareness, this is oftentimes just how we're interacting with other people, we're interacting with the world. We've got this very narrow bandwidth or narrow kind of circle that the sphere of awareness is rather limited what we're taking in. And there's a shadow all around that. There's the light, which we're paying attention to, but then there's all of that which is not really included within our awareness when we're keeping things limited in that way. The first 2 verses of the Dhammapada are all things, all dhammas are originating in the mind. They have mind as the source. They have mind as the chief. They're all mind made. If one speaks or acts with a mind that is corrupted, then suffering will follow one as the wheel, the hoof of the ox. That's the first verse. The second verse is all things are preceded by mind. They're all mind made, and they all have mind as their chief. If one speaks or acts with a bright mind, a light mind, a pasana mind, then happiness or sukha will follow one like a shadow that never leaves. And I've loved that verse and have chanted it in Pali many, many times. And the meaning of it seems to change and just mature. And yeah, think about that. What does that mean? That if one speaks or acts with a bright mind, a light mind, then happiness or pleasure even can follow one like a shadow that never leaves. One way that I've experimented with this perception, this insight, this verse, is that it's the light inside of us. It's the inner light, and we're casting this light all around us. And if we're awake and paying attention and bring some degree of mindfulness to our lives, then this lightness just goes out in every direction. And then if we're the light, then everything that we see is also a light. And the shadow, this coolness, and especially in India still today, you want coolness. Say in a northern climate, perhaps like Seattle in the winter when you've got seasonal affective disorder and you're just totally ready to get rid of all the clouds forever. We don't necessarily like the shade, but in India, it's a nice thing. It's coolness. There's this coolness there. And that's the happiness that when we come with this bright mind, then this coolness will come in its wake. We practice brightness in the present moment, and then this coolness will come just like a shadow that never leaves. And we don't even have to worry about the coolness, the Buddha says. We just put in the cause, we just bring the brightness right now, and that's all we can do. And that's one way that the mind can be lamp-like. In the Buddha's final discourse, the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, the Buddha also said specifically that you should make the Dhamma your Deepa, or that can be translated as either your island or your lamp. So make the Dhamma your lamp, or even make yourself your lamp, your own lamp. Be a lamp unto yourself. And in Buddhism, as most people know, we usually talk about not self, that there is this, you keep looking for a self in anything, any aspect of body and mind, and it's elusive. Take that as a koan. Can you find a self that's always there? But here the Buddha is saying, make yourself a lamp. Make a lamp unto yourself. Make a lamp unto yourself. So how can we do this? And this brings up another question, which I think is quite fascinating, is awareness, is mindfulness, if it is a light, if it is a lamp, is it like a on-off switch? You just on, off, or is it a dimmer switch? Is awareness, is it an on-off switch, or is it a dimmer switch? Or is it both? Is it one of those kind of cool dimmer switches where you can like turn it and it goes up or down, and you can like press it and it goes off, and then turn it on and it goes on? Or is it neither? And I think different schools of Buddhism, different teachers will take very clear different points or takes on that question. It might be if there's a very conservative or traditional Theravada teacher. Theravada is this gradual. We're famous for the gradualness of the Theravada path. The Buddha said, just as the ocean has a gradual incline, the beach just gradually goes down, the ocean just gradual like that, so too is the path gradual. It's a gradual path. And so that would, you could see a very traditional Theravada teacher saying, obviously, mindfulness is a dimmer switch. It's just a dimmer switch. We get better and better and have more and more capacity for mindfulness. You can't just go full light. Our capacity, just go full enlightenment, full brightness right now. That's a take. You can't do that. The path is gradual. I only have so much capacity right now based on my causes and conditions. Even when I'm most mindful in this present moment, it might just be a little speck. It might just be a little firefly compared to the light of the Buddha, or the awareness of, the complete capacity of awareness and mindfulness. Or you might have a teacher in a more direct or non-dual school say, no, the mind and awareness and mindfulness, it's just an on-off switch. Either you have it in the present moment, here it is, or there it's not. When you've got any moment of not being aware, forgetting your object of mindfulness, forgetting to be kind, forgetting your precepts, forgetting to be generous. These are all things on the Buddhist path, and they're all objects of mindfulness. When you forget that, then the mindfulness isn't there. The light is off. And then as soon as you remember these things, you bring awareness, and that's a moment of awakening. That's the on-off switch. Myself, I find that option of the cool dimmer switch that can both dim and go on and off to be quite helpful. It's like as we practice, we only can start where we're starting. You know, that the dimness, the brightness, or the non-brightness of our inner light, our capacity to know and be awake and feel bright, it can only be what it can be in any given moment. And we're training that. I mean, hopefully, I've got more capacity for the world, more capacity for spaciousness for the world. Each of us does than when we started meditating, when we started our spiritual practice and conceiving of the world as more than just us. Yeah, hopefully our dimmer switch is slowly moving up. And throughout our day, we have these dimmers. You know, we've got, for me, I'm a lark as opposed to a night owl. Ajahn and I are the same. We wake up super early. If you're thinking of a time right now, chances are we wake up earlier than that. But we go to bed super early, super early. If you're thinking of a time, it's almost certainly earlier than that too. But we love the morning. That's our brightest times. And it's throughout the day. It feels as if our lightness, our capacity for awareness and brightness just diminishes. At least certainly that's the case with me. I've read about this concept of ego depletion. So this is a concept I think popularized and maybe coined by Roy Baumeister in this book called Willpower. And the concept there, which has been, there's a lot of research for it, and there's some research that it's not totally the full truth of the human psyche. But the idea of ego depletion is that say after we've woken up or after we've had a meal, we've had some glucose go into the brain, go into the body, then we have a capacity for making good choices. You know, say we know what we want to do with our day. We've got the different habits and things that we want to do. We've got the things on our to-do list that we want to do. We know that we don't want to do this bad habit and we do want to do this good habit. And we have a capacity for that. That changes throughout the day. But as Roy Baumeister would propose, our glucose goes down, we become more sleepy, start becoming sleep deprived, and our capacity for following through with our determinations, for keeping up with our egoic goals, doing our good habits, not doing our bad habits, that depletes. And I think that's probably most people's experience through the course of a day. But it's not the total truth. You can always muster some sense of willpower at any point of the day and be like, oh, you know, I'm feeling tired, but actually I'm still going to work out. I'm still going to not eat the things that I don't want to eat. I'm still going to not say the mean things to my partner that part of me wants to say, even though a lot of me wants to say it and I'm tired and I haven't eaten or whatever. So it's not the total truth, but similarly, I think this pattern goes with, haven't totally come up with a good name for it, but awareness depletion. So another name for that ego depletion is decision fatigue. Decision fatigue. I make so many decisions during the day, in my morning, and then at some point, I've just made so many that's like, I'm done. You know, I'm just going to give in. Whatever the mind wants to do, my old habits, I'm just going to follow along. So this awareness fatigue, awareness depletion. And there's some seeming truth to that as well. You wake up, or if you're a night person, in the evening, you do your meditation and the mind is bright and you feel like you've got this reserve. You've been practicing it. You've opened your window. It's as if your heart were a solar panel. You've been opening up that aperture for the sunlight to come in, and you've been getting recharged during your period of meditation. And then when the period's over, you've got all this energy. Awareness is there, and things feel spacious. And I don't say the things to the people that I don't want to say, and I can have this capacity for loving kindness and brightness. And it feels like that. But throughout the day, that kind of high, that brightness that comes from our meditation diminishes. Similarly, with like a retreat, after if you sat, 3-day retreat or a 10-day retreat, or if you know other people who have sat 3-day retreats, 10-day retreats, month-long retreat, 45-day retreat, 60-day retreat, 90-day retreat, it's like yourself or the other person is like supercharging that battery. It's almost like it's like a lighthouse awareness. And it's like if you've got your friend goes on this 90-day retreat and you see him across the room and they're kind of facing that other way, and you tap on their shoulder and they turn around and it's like the lighthouse just beams. It's almost like you have like a foghorn, like, and then you just super bright smile, and it can feel like this, the brightness of the mind from not going outwards. There's a beautiful teaching by Lumpur Atulo, who he's a Thai teacher, passed away late 1900s. But he reformulates the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths, you've got the truth of suffering, the cause of suffering, which is craving, the cessation of suffering, which is getting rid of that craving, and the path leading to the cessation of suffering. He switched it around, has the second noble truth first and the fourth noble truth third. So he says, the mind that goes out is the cause of suffering, and the result of the mind going out is suffering. So the mind that goes out, the second noble truth, is the cause of suffering. The fruit of that is suffering when the mind goes out, which is what most of us, honestly, are doing most of the time. We're just constantly going out, like looking at all the beautiful things and like beautiful people and listening to all the great, everything, just letting all of our energy just go out. And there's nothing, that doesn't have to be a bad thing. But when we don't keep that inner light alive, then we feel depleted. That's ego depletion. That's awareness depletion that we feel. But Lumpur Dun continued, the mind, seeing the mind, is the path to the end of suffering. And the fruit of that is the ending of suffering. So the mind that goes out is the cause of suffering. The result of the mind going out is suffering. The mind seeing the mind is the path to the end of suffering. And the fruit of the mind seeing the mind is the complete ending of suffering, the third noble truth. So that's beautiful. And that's what we're hopefully doing with meditation, is just, keeping that light of awareness on and paying attention to it. And that it has a seeming, I say it has a seeming appearance, this seeming awareness depletion, because in any moment too, any moment that we're able to be aware and to remember explicitly and specifically the truth of not self, actually, there's no tiny ego, even though I, reaffirm it and kind of think about it and think through it most of the time, most days, relate to the world through this ego story that I have. And when I'm looking at other people and talking to other people, they're kind of reinforcing that with their looks and their stories about me. When I realize that that's just an illusion that I've created, in any moment that you do that, this awareness, that's the light switch going on, and the capacity that the depth to which I'm able to see that truth of not self. That's how bright the light is on. And that's, my lamp, my light, our lights can only be on, can only be as bright as they can be, but on, off, there it is, one moment. And even in a moment of seeming darkness, when you've got mind states of greed and anger and confusion and jealousy, and you fill in the blank, all of the things which are just less than optimal and are kind of ugly, both when we see them in ourselves and when we see them in other people. Those characteristics which just aren't our brightest. When you know them, that's turning on the light. Yeah, knowing them. This is the third foundation of mindfulness. Mind knowing mind, ardent, alert, and mindful. Putting aside greed and distress with reference to the world, we bring light to the situation right then and there. So that's some lamp light. I've talked a little bit about flashlight awareness, lamp awareness. We got this skylight awareness. This is a practice which you find in Tibetan tradition, is just sky gazing. And this is just a really useful trick, is that most of the time it does feel like I'm going out. My eyes, there's some like little me behind the eyes, maybe in the brain, going out and interacting with the world. I'm somehow creating the light outside of me. But just to realize the physics of light, that everything that I see is actually just the sun's light reflecting off of everything and coming back into the eye. I don't need to do anything to have my visual apparatus work. I don't need to do anything. You can just relax your pupils and relax all those orbicular oralis, I think it is, these tight little sphincters around our eyes that just kind of tighten up, and you can just relax. Like, I don't need to be doing that. It seems like they go on autopilot sometimes and just contract and constrict. But yeah, I can just receive the world. And if you are able to go to the top of a mountain and just look at the sky, 360-degree light, and just take it all in, it's a beautiful way to receive the world. And you can do that. You can learn to do that anytime, right here in the middle of Skinner Auditorium. I was the one who turned on the lights, and I was unimpressed, actually, especially I knew I was giving a talk on light, and I thought there would be more, honestly. Fortunately, we've got the disco ball, which helps to some extent. But yeah, if you can take the insights gained from the brightness of looking out into an expanse, looking out into space, and realize that we don't, our awareness, our focus, even, you can train your focus rather than being on someone else's face. You can actually focus on the space anywhere between you and that person. Learning how to focus on space. Why don't you do that? You can. We focus on the surfaces of the world, and that's just our habit. But you don't have to do that. You can train yourself actually. My hand, you can just experiment. You don't have to do it now if you're afraid of looking weird, but I'm looking at my hand, and it's about, 1.5 to 2 feet away from me. And my eyes, my pupils are focused at that distance, and I move it down, and my eyes are still focused at that area of space right here. And that can just be, it can help you diffuse your stories about other people in the world when you're not overly attached to other people's reactions and the stories that you tell about their stories about you. So that skylight awareness, this inner light awareness, there's some fascinating words in psychology, or even not quite physics, but physiology. The word for when you close your eyes and you see all this play of this fireworks or kind of tie-dye of light, that has a name. It's called phosphine, this light. Another word for it is a German word, 2 German words, Eigenlicht. Eigen is one's own, Licht is light. So Eigenlicht. The color and the shapes that I see when my eyes are closed, that you see when your eyes are closed, that's Eigenlicht. That's your own light. That's the name for this experience. And it's something that, they've done all sorts of studies. You put yourself in a totally sensory deprived room, total darkness, still you'll see light. And that's rather fascinating. And then just going to the inner light. What is the inner light? What is the mind's light? And this is, if talk during the meditation about focusing on a light doesn't make sense to you, then hopefully at least the metaphor of the mind as light, of consciousness as light, that which, there's no very clear and satisfying definition of what consciousness is, but one just lay way of talking about that is, what is consciousness? It's when the lights are on. It's when the lights are on. And the Buddha talks about that in the same way. There are places in the canon where the Buddha talks about the mind being pabasara. This is one other word for light. The Buddha talks about the mind is luminous or radiant. And this concept is taken and expanded on to huge degree in Mahayana and Tibetan teachings. In the Pali context, it's just pointing to this capacity of awareness. Awareness, consciousness, this feeling that the lights are on is a metaphor for how we experience the world. Whether our eyes are open or closed, awareness, when we're awake, when there's this Buddho, this awaken, when the alarm clock has gone off and we've brought this level of awareness, we're participating in the capacity of awareness, then it feels like the lights are on. That's what the Buddha is talking to. The mind is luminous in the sense that there is this capacity to know the lights can be on. And it really is up to us to participate in that awareness. I think a good case could be made that whether we are mindful or not, at any time, there is the capacity to be mindful, to be awake and alert. Even if I'm paying attention to the feeling of my leg, if someone were to come along and I'm talking this way and they were to come and poke my leg, I wasn't paying attention to that, but the mind is still paying attention. There's this awareness that's going on somewhere, this capacity for consciousness that's picking up on the bodily physical sensations. And similarly, the mind, there is this brightness of mind that's there, and it's up to us to participate in that, to realize that that light is there. So that's the inner light, the pabasara chitta, the mind that's radiant, the mind that's luminous. And I hope that people are able to experience that to some degree, and yeah, to look and ask yourself, maybe, in what way is awareness like a lamp, like a light? This is something when many people would go and hear the Buddha for the first time, and he would give some like totally great teaching. He would just give like a great teaching. He did that like a lot. And people would go and hear his teachings, and then the person would just be totally blown away. And they would say, it's just as if there was a lamp and it was turned on. So just as a lamp being turned on in a dark room, so too darkness has gone away and lightness has emerged. Ajahn Suwat, one of Ajahn Thanissaro's teachers, he talks about it's this kind of fascinating insight. It's as if you bring a light or a lamp or even a candle into a dark room, and the darkness can't say, whoa, 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 whoa. Just wait a second. I've been here for a really long time. What are you doing? You can't bring any light in here. Darkness can't do that. As soon as you bring the light into the room, you open up awareness, you bring some mindfulness to your life, participate in this capacity to know, and darkness is gone to the extent that it's gone in that moment. You're the dimmer switch, you've turned it on, and hopefully all of us can do that in any moment, whether we like what's coming in through the eyes, ear, nose, tongue, body. Still, we can turn on awareness and know that liking or know that disliking, know the brightness or know the darkness, whatever it is. That's the capacity of the mind, and that's what the Buddha talked about. And we can gradually, the more we keep the light on, the more our capacity for taking in light, giving off light, being the light, breathing the light, the more that gets turned up in our inner brightness, inner light can just get brighter. So in the talk there, and yeah, look around for Kate.
หันธรรมยังธรรมคาถาสาธุกรังคาถามเสสาธุสาธุสาธุโอทามิ
Okay. So we can open things up for questions or comments. Anybody can share your experience. Yeah, Christopher.
Thank you very much. That was a wonderful talk. My question briefly is about, or reflecting rather on what you mentioned about the external light versus the internal light. And I love the analogy that you gave about the dimming. I find that when, as an artist myself, who has worked with light, I find that as light permeates through an object, kind of like light through a prism, if you were simple put in that way, as light pierces through this thick material of substance, whether it's glass, whatever the material is, it doesn't really matter. What matters is how that light travels and bends the way that it's received from the object. So when it reflects into the surface of the wall or whatever it's reflecting onto, it becomes a different level of awareness in that if we use a laser light, it's different than if we use an LED light versus if we use a white flashlight. All different light waves are all essentially photons and particles, all this other thing, but they all have their own different reaction to the material. And so as I have this level of awareness of how light behaves physically in terms of physics, optics, perception, my perception changes when when I no longer have to see the object of how the light responds to the material, but more about how, in essence, when I sit down and I close my eyes and I no longer have to rely on how that intensity of that light is traveling to the object, but more about how I can imbue the light, meaning how I embody the light for myself as a dissipated gradient of the way the light is imbued in me, not so much as it is in the object for my viewer to understand what I'm capturing in my photography, for example. I don't mean to get all wordy, but that's probably too much to go over, but that's kind of essentially what I feel like I resonated with what you shared. So I wanted to ask you, or not ask, but really reflect upon what you were sharing. Would you find that when we look at others outside of ourselves and we see ourselves in it, when we have the, for example, laser light hitting a piece of glass, it's going to be a sharper bend, but it's going to cause a sharper response back in any kind of way because it's startling. It's in the darkness that we see this. But in essence, I'll distill down and I'll calm down. But how can I imbue that so that I can know that when I'm in my imbued state or in my embodied state, that light is pervasive through all?
Yeah, I think one thing that you're doing with all of that reflection is just being creative in the way that you hear and use this perception of light. I mean, really, the Buddha, when he described it in these early suttas, it's so just the bare bones, and all of us have to just add the flesh ourselves and figure out what's most meaningful for us. And yeah, is it an LED light? Is it a flame? Is it the sun? Is it, all these different types of light? And I think one thing which is maybe helpful is, just when the Buddha is defining that perception of light, he says that it goes just as above, just so below, so above, same in the front, same in the back, front. And that's just speaking to the radiant quality of light. If you've got a light, as long as it doesn't hit anything, it's just going to go in every direction. And even if it hits something, there's probably some photons that are going through it. But you don't actually need to do any of that. The Buddha said in a different discourse that there are 4 types of light. You've got the light of the moon, you got the light of the sun, you got the light of fire, and you got the light of wisdom. And that light of wisdom, like, you don't have to, be cranking up the switch. You don't have to be you don't have to do that. You can just, stay with the body, your own perception of the body, or whatever stay with the breath, remembering your precepts, how you want to speak and engage with the world. When you keep this awareness present, then the light is just going to do what it does, and you kind of just trust that. And that things seem more natural that way when we try to, shine our own lasers, shoot laser beams of loving kindness or somebody, at somebody, it feels a bit artificial. You can kind of do it to some extent, but it just feels a little bit off or too intense. And I think just relaxing that is a good thing.
So I think in essence, what sounds like what I got from what you just shared is that it's an embodiment of the light that basically illuminates from within itself. It charges itself, and not the same way that the light is doing it physically through my perception. Similarly, but it's more of a gradient or a dimmer. It's more of an expansion of a softer, transmutable light that is anyway.
Work with it in that way. Especially embodied, like you were saying.
I was told to keep it short. I will. The reference you made to Ajahn Tulo's reconfiguring of the Four Noble Truths, I read that in the book you had here, and I love that. It's such a simple, useful way of kind of understanding the Four Noble Truths, but just how to behave, that I found very, very straightforward and useful. So thank you for that.
Glad to hear that. And the tie is just so simple. What is the path? It's mind seeing mind. When this terms of light is just light knowing light, or mind knowing mind, mind seeing mind.
Okay, I just wanted to say something real quickly. I guess it's the light of wisdom that I'm cultivating to help me to stay mindful when emotions, really, really strong old emotions, knock me down, which has been happening a lot recently. So do you have any thoughts about that? About, when, like I feel like I'd be enlightened today if it wasn't for my emotional body. Thanks.
Well, I mean, it seems like you're doing what you can, is just bringing awareness and some measure of light to, I mean, we can't control actually what moods come up from past conditions, or what, even to some degree, what thoughts are going to bubble up. I don't know what the next thought I'm going to have is, or what the next mood I'm going to have is, but being able to know that and bring some awareness to it. And then, trusting in that light of wisdom, a light of awareness. It's almost like believing in the almost disinfectant quality of light. Like you hang up in Thailand after we get back from alms round, it's walking in early morning, the sun is coming out. We've got, three layers of this type robe on and kind of getting sweaty. So we hang up our robes right after on a long laundry line and just let it be out in the sun for 5 or 10 minutes. And it kind of dries up all that sweat and just brings some level of things don't fester. And when you are able to be mindful of the more turbulent moods, that they will be less. It is bringing some level of alleviation to the whole churning.
Hello. So I had a question for you. So at one point you were talking about shedding the light to the defilements like hatred or greed. And this is a question like I always had, but never got a chance to ask. It's like whenever like there's hatred in me, there are ways that I can see it. Like if I feel anger in my like emotional body, or if there's a certain state of mind. And same with greed, like when I feel a certain type of desire. But when it comes to delusion, that's something that I've never really understood, because yeah, it's like delusion, like how do you even see that and how you shed light in that?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And greed and anger are just, it's more clear even in their kind of subtle forms, but delusion is, things are kind of sloppy and everything's all mixed up. And yeah, it's like a dimmer awareness, that the capacity. I mean, it's almost this conditioned experience of delusion or confusion. It does have some kind of effect, it seems, on our capacity to know it. And so, yeah, it seems harder to even turn on the light. The light seems to just go out by itself after our capacity, both our capacity to turn on the light, to keep the light on, to keep the light going, it does diminish. So, I mean, something you can prime the whole process just by practicing, meditating before you get into this. For me, it's pretty reliable. Honestly, through the course of a day, it's like, say, like peak mindfulness early in the morning, and then it goes like this. And then there's a little bit of a meal, and then it keeps going down. And then it's like, yeah, kind of handicapped after about 11 a.m. But knowing that, I can create patterns. I can, myself, and hopefully most people in this room have some degree of freedom in our lives to design many days or most days, our structures and routines, at least to some level. So yeah, we've got a group meditation that we do from 5:15 or from 5 to 5:45 every day on Zoom. That is probably like my worst time, or one of the worst, low times of this deluded mind. But if I'm sitting with other people, even if it's just on Zoom, there's more instances of, okay, remembering turning the switch on even when it turns itself off. And yeah, kind of decreasing that tendency towards the kind of sloppiness of confusion and delusion. And you can do other things throughout the rest of your day. Like if it is the afternoon, or if it's the morning, whenever it is, setting reminders on your phone, or setting times to meet with your friends during those times. Just that's some way, because if you just follow your habits, that is what is going to lead to the same result, just more kind of delusion and darkness. But switch up your habits, switch around the people who you see with, your bright friends, your Kalyana Mitta, bring those into your life at those times. So that can help. Yeah. I think this might be maybe 2 more questions. Yep.
Yeah, the question is about, you mentioned corrupt mind. So could you elaborate what that means and why that would be? And would that still work if you, let's say, alone totally live somewhere in a desert, there's no one to relate to? Would that still work, the same principle of corrupt mind, or would that be different because it's relative to?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the what was the principle of
the idea of corrupt mind versus not corrupt, and would that still work if you don't have anyone to relate, meaning that you're totally, let's say, living in a desert, there's no one there, right? There would be no relationships. Would that principle of corrupt mind, would it still work, and why?
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, it can be like a triggering word even to even talk about the mind being corrupt, or defiled even is another word that you sometimes hear in Buddhist circles. The word is padutta in that Dhammapada verse. And yeah, it does refer to this non-bright. It's in counter-distinction to this pasana chitta, the mind that's bright, that has this degree of lightness to it. It's a mind that is obscured. It's like there's the sun and it's been obscured by rain clouds or so. That's the paduttam. That's the corrupt. It's corrupt in the sense that if we're a little person on the earth and a rain cloud comes up, our view of the higher heavens, of the higher skies, it's been corrupted in a sense. But yeah, the sky is still there. There's not actually a problem. And this is what we were just talking about, this third foundation of mindfulness. When you knowing mind, one knows the mind of craving or the mind of anger as a mind of craving or anger. One knows the deluded mind as a deluded mind, or one knows the undiluted, non-craving, non-aversive mind as undiluted, not craving, not aversive. So it's almost like you bring a metta single T or double T, like a kind of, you shift your awareness to a higher level of knowing, or just, shift your awareness from the cloud, that passing corruption of how I think the world should be in my view of light, to the whole sky. So if you're in the middle of the desert, if you're totally by yourself, you can do it, but just reading into the question a little bit, having friends on the path, the Buddha said, these kalyana mitta. Mitta is friends. Kalyana is that which is beautiful. So beautiful friendship, noble friendship, spiritual friendship. The Buddha said that's the whole of the holy life. So it is really helpful to have people who mirror our own capacity for light, or just show us a whole nother vista of what a human mind can be like. You hang around these monasteries, or hopefully, you don't have to go to a monastery, you don't have to go to any place Buddhist, you just look around in your life, hopefully, and you see there's a range of, how else do you describe it, but kind of the brightness of people. You could talk about it in terms of auras, but just this inner light that different people have, whatever the religion or no religion. And having people who have what we want, people who are kind of bring that brightness and lightness to the world. Hanging around those people, it kind of rubs off a little bit. We get some of that lightness, and hope that addressed it some way.
I enjoyed the talk. Thank you for the talk. I have a follow-up question on the nature of delusion and recognizing it. You talked about every time the mind going out, that we invite suffering in. Can it also be said that every time the mind goes out, we are partaking in delusion?
So what was the first part of that?
So you talked about every time the mind goes out, we are potentially inviting suffering. So every time the mind goes out, can it also be said that we are partaking in delusion? Yes. Yeah, thank you. That's a good way to put it. And that the Buddha does use those words. Tama is the word for darkness, and moha, delusion. They can be almost synonymous. So the mind that goes out is the cause of suffering. The mind that goes out is the cause of delusion. Delusion is the cause of suffering. Delusion and suffering are almost synonymous, almost just different angles on the same mental phenomena in a sense. Yeah, interesting. Well, maybe inclining towards the end of the morning. Maybe if Kirk or Cheryl or Milo, could you read the blessing braid? So this, on our website, we've got a list of, it's called the blessing braid, or requests for chanting. And these are people who've either signed up for themselves or for others in their life, who just to send a little bit extra love and loving kindness towards. So please.
Well, first, from Lottawan's house, we had a cup and a bowl, if it's anybody's. Coda, emergency surgery for successful recovery. Jack and Sarah's child, about to have first child. Please spread love for a safe birth and beautiful life. Teresa and Carter, soon to have back surgery to remove metal from her former surgeries. May there be healing. Ellen Wilhelm, may current protocols and alternative approaches heal Ellen's bladder cancer. To all beings, including devas and nagas, spread happiness. Dave, in hospital for serious health complications, please spread metta. Kate, Ho, Sue, Lee, and family. Father recently had a stroke. Please send metta. University of Nevada professors. 3 died in recent shooting. Please spread love. Monk in Pago City, Myanmar. Monk from Pago City dead by Juta soldier shot. That monk is one of the chief from Monk Association of Myanmar. LSY, healing from anxiety and general well-being.
Thank you, Kirk. And anyone here, if you'd like to bring any names into the group awareness, any thoughts? Janaki. Jessica's mom. Yeah, thank you. She's having surgery. Oh, please, yeah. Bo, just diagnosed with colon cancer. Yeah. Claire's health issues. Yeah, please. John on hospice care. Sid. For Sid. Yeah. Okay. Joni Johnson, who was in a car accident. Sadhu. Okay. Emily. Okay. Emily, whose grandfather just passed away. Okay, we can sit with these names for just 20 seconds or so. Okay, keeping all those people in mind, as well as everyone here, we can do a closing chant on page 43. This is the suffusion with the divine abidings. Now let us make the 4 boundless qualities shine forth. I will abide, pervading 1/4, with a mind imbued with loving kindness. Likewise the 2nd, likewise the 3rd, likewise the 4th. So above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself, I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a heart imbued with loving kindness, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. I will abide, pervading 1/4, with a heart imbued with compassion. Likewise the 2nd, likewise the 3rd, likewise the 4th. So above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself, I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a heart imbued with compassion, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. I will abide, pervading 1/4, with a heart imbued with gladness. Likewise, the second, likewise, the third, likewise, the fourth. So above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself, I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a heart imbued with gladness, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. I will abide, pervading one quarter, with a heart imbued with equanimity. Likewise, the second, likewise, the third, likewise, the fourth. So above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself, I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a heart imbued with equanimity, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. Okay. So we do still have many people came and offered food for a potluck that's in the back, and everyone is totally welcome to stay for that. Just a quick question. Is anybody here for the first, second, or third time? And if you're here, would you mind maybe saying your name? If that's okay, no pressure, but. Oh. Jasmine, thanks for coming. Jamar, welcome. Hey, David. Christine, okay. All right. Well, so everybody can just hang out. We'll be here for the next 45 minutes or so. At about 11:30, we'll ring a bell for cleanup. But also, we do encourage people to experiment with exploring outside of your comfort and friend group. So maybe going up to someone who you haven't yet met and introducing yourself and saying hello. It's really a wonderful community that we've got growing here. So encourage that, and just glad to be here with everybody. And for anyone who's so inclined, we can bow to the Buddha 3 times. And if you're not inclined, no pressure at all.